5 campaign notes. At the Battle of Ulm, the emperor was in the middle, bullets and grape shot. He was in the greatest danger. The king of Naples and Prince Berthier came and take hold of his horse bridle in order to lead him away from danger, saying to him, "Sire, there's no place for your majesty." The emperor said, "My place is everywhere. Leave me alone, Murat. Go do your duty." It was the same evening before the battle that I saw Monsieur Lacoue, who I knew very well. He had some friendship for me. Lacoue, a colonel, was formerly an aide-de-camp of the emperor, tall, thin, and curt, with an interesting face. He had been Moreau's friend and used to visit him, hence his disgrace. Hence his rank, a colonel in the infantry. It was on the morning of the Battle of Ulm that Roustam saw him. The emperor reviewed the regiment, said nothing to the colonel, but Roustam looked at him, and the colonel stepped forward. "Well, colonel, you abandon us?" "My dear Roustam, I shall make myself known to the emperor, seeing that I will get myself killed." His regiment, a corps in Marshal Ney's army, bridged across. The battle was barely engaged. Lacoue's regiment was at the bridgehead. The marshal ordered the regiment to take the bridge. Already the bridge was crossed. Enemy Austrians. Commandant General Mack. Barely over the bridge, Lacoue was hit by a bullet in the middle of his forehead. The following day, Mack was wounded. The emperor, lodged in an abbey, wanted to see the prisoners march past him. He was an hour away from Ulm. He charged Caulaincourt, choosing a peasant to familiarize him with the countryside. On the way to Ulm, the peasant rode, but a quarter of an hour before they arrived, it was noticed that he was not a native. Fury of Caulaincourt, who had the peasant administered a flogging of 25 blows. Indignation of Duroc, etc. The emperor arrived at Schönbrunn. The enemy had already burned the bridges of Vienna over the Danube. Emperor went to visit on the Ebersdorf, a small burg on the Danube. He gave orders for bridges to be built over the Danube opposite Ebersdorf. The emperor, departing Schönbrunn, visited the works every day. 2 branches of the Danube, 2 bridges built over. Then the Isle of Lobau. Then a little branch of the river to reach the plain. Battle was engaged. The Austrians destroyed the water mills and thrown in the water. These drifting water mills broke our bridges, and not half of our army had crossed over. The evening before, 2 days before the battle, the emperor left his headquarters and spent the night in Ebersdorf. Battle was engaged. The emperor had crossed in person with his aide-de-camp and joined up with the third of the army. Essling, where the third of the army was, emperor was told that the bridge was broken across the larger branch of the Danube. The enemy pushed us back through the woods onto the smaller branch of the Danube. The emperor crossed the small bridge and returned to the Isle of Lobau alone with his aides-de-camp. All along the island, formidable artillery in case of defeat, 30 pieces. Arrived on the island, the emperor had the whim to get dressed in the open air. Monsieur Jardin Aîné, his piqueur, carried at the back of his horse all the linen which the emperor could need. He sat on the ground and we dressed him completely. That moment, one of General Dorsen's aides-de-camp came to ask for munitions. "Tell him I do not have any. Whatever he does will be done well." Some moments later, the emperor being under a large tree, some sappers crossed the little bridge, carrying Marshal Lannes, a knee smashed, the other cut open, his arms bare, the rest of him wrapped up in a cloak. He was set down 50 paces from the great tree. The emperor ran and, knee to the ground, threw himself on his body, embraced him, and without saying anything, kissed him on his face. The Prince of Neuchâtel took one of the emperor's, Marshal Duroc, and the other. They pulled him away from the body, and he was led under the tree. It was twilight. Marshal Lannes was taken to Ebersdorf. He was put in a boat to cross the Danube. The viceroy was on the other side in Ebersdorf. The emperor, weeping, said, "Oh, they will pay dearly for this." The emperor alone with a Polish squadron. He told Dorsen to stand fast. That evening he rode. He went to the wretched bridgehead, which was over the larger branch of the Danube. Arrived there, so many wounded on the shore that one could barely pass. The emperor crossed in a large boat, steered by marines of the guard, and arrived in Ebersdorf. Then it was night. The retreat was called, and the French army crossed the little bridge and came to take up position on the island of Lobau, where the batteries were. The emperor went the following day to see Lan, who was in Ebersdorf, having lunch, having dinner, having supper. The tears flowed into his spoon. He would eat alone with Berthier. We remained nearly a month in Ebersdorf. During this interval, the emperor visited Lan's at a big hospital. He had 1 Napoleon distributed to each soldier and 5 to the officers. Several refused. In the other houses were the wounded. Duroc brought the same help. The first-rate bridge was nearly done. He crossed on foot, his entourage of officers boring him. He said one day, "Stay, I only need Roustam and a lorgnette." He made a tour of the island, visited Dorsen's army, which was waiting for the bridge to be finished. One day, riding with the emperor on Lobau Isle, by the side of the smaller branch of the Danube, the small bridge had been removed. The emperor spotted the Austrian sentries. He had his little lorgnette, which was always in his pocket, and he watched the positions of the enemy. A bullet whistled, skimmed close by the emperor's ears. "Zounds! It is your white hat which betrays us! It needs to be another color!" And as the sentry reloaded his gun, "That is enough of that, comrade! It's getting hot here! Let us depart!" We returned to Ebersdorf. I rode to Vienna to buy a colored turban. Since that period in all battles, a turban of dark muslin. The island of Lobau, full of stags and deer. They were hunted one day when the bridge was being worked on. A stag crossed the water and arrived panting in Ebersdorf. In the courtyard of the emperor's house, it was shot. It was Massena's army corps, which was on the Isle of Lobau. The eve before the Battle of Wagram, the emperor went to the Isle of Lobau, had his tent pitched there, received a plenipotentiary, had him dine with him, Berthier, Massena, and the Austrian envoy. "Monsieur Ove, tell those who sent you that at 9 o'clock this evening." It was then 7. "I shall cross the Danube." Said at 9 o'clock, it was 8. His Majesty had said to Massena, "You are wounded. You shall remain here." He had fallen from his horse. "Your aide-de-camp will replace you." "No, sire, will not leave my post. I will command from a barouche." 3 rafts had been made. At 8 o'clock, the crossing began. At the first light of dawn, the emperor crossed with his general staff. It was there that he asked for me in his little black cord, at the end of which was a small heart in black satin, which he wore on his flannel gilet before his shirt, big as a 30 sous piece. Battle of Wagram. In the middle of the day, the firing was intense. Massena was in a 4-horse barouche. His servants were not happy about it. A horse behind his barouche. He became impatient. He got out. At the same moment, a cannonball went through it, the very place where he was sitting. Then he mounted his horse, one stirrup being too short. He lost his temper with his servant. He hit his servant with his riding crop, and the latter went a short distance away. A soldier passed by. He said, "My friend, come and shorten my stirrups. Set your gun on the ground and make haste." At that moment, a cannonball carried off the man, and everyone had to say, "The emperor named him well, the cherished child of victory." 4th of September, 1812, entrance into Moscow. October, departure from Moscow. Entered Moscow with 90,000 combatants and 20,000 invalids. He left there with more than 100,000 combatants and left 1,200 invalids on the 23rd of October. Headquarters at Borovsk on the 24th of October. The emperor was on the banks of a stream and of the village of Gordinia, in a weaver's hut, wooden house, dilapidated, vile, a half league from Malo, Yaroslavets. Danger that threatened the emperor. He was attacked by Cossacks. Rapp wished to attack them in order to thwart them. He drew his épée, dueling sword, and prepared for the Cossacks. On the 20th of October, full retreat. On the 28th of October, in Moyaysk, a few leagues from Moyaysk, the Kolochka River. Further on, the large abbey or hospital of Kolotskoye. That evening, the imperial column approached Gats. From Gats, the emperor reached Vyazma in 2 marches. The 6th of November, severe winter, total rout. From Gats to Miliskovska, village between Durgovin and Smolensk, nothing of remark. All equipment was discarded. On the 3rd and 4th of November, the emperor had stayed over in Slavovo. On the 5th at Durgoboya. On the 6th up by Milikovska. The emperor learned of a general's conspiracy in Paris. He made no reply and went into a stockaded house which had served as a connection post. On the 9th of November, the emperor in Smolensk, he locked himself in a house on the Place Neuve and did not come out of it until the 14th to continue his retreat. Horrible food shortage. On the 11th of November at 5 o'clock in the morning, the imperial column left Smolensk. Korytnia, 5 leagues from Smolensk. Krasnoye, 5 leagues from Korytnia. Liadi, 4 leagues from Krasnoye. 2 leagues to the right on the main road runs the Borysena. The emperor at Korytnia in a miserable hovel. On the 17th, the emperor in Liadi, 4 leagues from the battlefield. The following day, he left Old Russia. November, Dubrovna, City of Wood, the Dnieper River, the Orsna, the Borisov, the 22nd, 23rd. Napoleon was in the Tolochnin, the Berezina. It was on the 24th that he attempted the crossing, Studianka, crossing of the Berezina. The emperor at the head of his reserves at Brlova on the 29th. The emperor leaves the bank of the Berezina. The emperor arrives in Kamenn on the 30th at Plezniki, and on the 3rd of December at Malachenia. It was there that the emperor formed his plan to depart for Paris. 1 day after the crossing of the Berezina, on the 30th of November at Plezniki, the emperor arranged to eat, but the soldiers of 1 regiment had pillaged the canteen, carried on the backs of 3 mules, which always followed, carrying in panniers attached to the saddle wine and bread or biscuit and provisions. On the last of these mules was the small iron bed, which could be set up anywhere and which was rolled up with a mattress across a mule. Those soldiers, starved by the continual marches, spotted this feeble caravan, which was making its way under the guidance of 3 gendarmes and 2 officers de la Bouche. With greedy eyes, they saw them pass by, but hunger overcame them, and there they were rushing up in disorderly fashion, asking where these provisions came from and to whom they were destined. They knew it, and what is more, they were able to read on the cover the destination of those victuals. But once again, hunger! It is the emperor's. Do not touch it. Yet already 1,000 thieving hands were assailing the panniers. The emperor does not order us to die, and furthermore, to his health. And that was the end of the provisions, which besides did nothing but irritate further a hunger badly satisfied. The emperor excused his soldiers. However, he wanted to know what regiment they belonged to. A day will come when they will have all they want, and I will review them. But no, my reproach would be all too cruel. On such and such a day, you stole the bread of the emperor. 2 days before arriving at Smorgoni at Molodechno, the emperor, who had beat a retreat with the army, made the decision to leave it. He spent the night in a wretched village by Molodechno. I was in the next room. I heard loud talking. It was the emperor, rebuking Berthier very loudly. He wanted to follow him. I'm going to France because my presence is indispensable. Sire, for a long time, Your Majesty has known that I want to quit the service. I am old. Take me. You will remain with Eugène and Murat. He was insisting. You are an ingrate. You are a coward. I will have you shot in front of the army. And the other sobbed.